Hey, before I kick off the podcast, I just want to shout out Next Door Clothing. Next Door, a clothing brand based out of Bondi in Sydney. They're making really nice jeans and shirts and hats. So go and check out their full range at nextdoorsydney.com. They're also artists, so you can go and check out a range of art. They put on rad parties, and I love what they're doing. So nextdoorsydney.com for the full range.
It's almost time. Rock. 8, 7, 6, 5.
Tried to hold us back, to hold us, tried to hold us back.
We will be here forever. Do you understand? Forever.
Hey, it's Shan here. This week I speak with Jed Smith. Jed has been on the show before. I think this will be his third time. Except, unlike the other times, this time it's in real life. So Jed and I met up in the beautiful area of Byron Bay, Australia. Had a good afternoon, good chat, hanging out. Jed's an interesting cat, man. He's very endearing. I don't know how to describe him. He's raw, he's authentic. He's educated, he's opinionated, he's a former Vice Media journalist, he's a former journalist for News Limited, he's also a surf journalist for various surf media publications, but most predominantly he's the co-host of the most popular surfing podcast in the world, that is the Ain't That Swell podcast. And Jed and I just talk about life and this experience. I mean, we don't talk about surfing at all. We talk about diets and biohacks and literally how we can be the best version of ourselves. I mean, Jed's Aussie battler background has led him down paths in life that were very destructive, and he's acknowledged that, and he's rectifying that, and has rectified it in a lot of ways, and he's just going from level to level to level, and it's really apparent. And I've seen it just monitoring him and listening to him over the last few years. It's a great conversation. We go off on some political bullshit tangents, and I fucking hate talking about that stuff because I'm not a political commentator, and there's so many better political commentators over there, and I kind of brought up some of the shit, and I kind of was like cringing at it, but I'm like, well, that's how the conversation went, and I'm just going to stand by it. So I didn't cut it out, but please don't come at me with like telling me how wrong I am. I know I'm fucking wrong. Like, I just started talking about it, and Jed was kind of the same, and I just sort of regret talking about that dark shit that's happening in the world at the moment. So anyway, hope you enjoyed my conversation with Mr. Jed Smith.
Tried to hold us back.
Get what I'm saying.
Tried to hold us, tried to hold us vain, tried to hold us back. What's in vain?
Child of the crayon, child of the light, styles of the neon belong to a culture destined to rock for eons. Time doesn't exist. Shut those cataracts, capture the virtualist. Now let's get back to what makes things seem forever, whether it's unseen, unheard, or 16 again. Not a bother. Fill this old man river, kill a floor that gives all.
Why do you reckon you're doing the keto thing?
Well, I know it's good for concussion. That's the main reason. It's good to have your brain running on ketones. That's what I got told. I flick between the paleo and the keto diet, but I have probably too many cheat days as well. But like the keto is the one for concussion and depression, I believe.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of good data behind it.
It feels like a lot of things you do are based around managing concussion.
Yeah.
And healing from years of it.
Yeah. It is.
It's like a big part of your story, hey?
Yeah. Man, it's funny because I never really thought about it until all that stuff about CTE came out around American Gridiron and all that. And then I was like, fuck, it was the first time I'd ever thought about it really. And I was like, wow. And I started tallying them up. And then I was like, whoa, I've also had like, kind of 3 to 4 dog shots. And I'm like, is a dog shot worth like fucking 5 concussions? Like those things are out of hand. Some can't just fucking...
In total of your life?
Oh, there's been like...
recently?
Oh, in the total. But they all came within a pretty short period, 17 to 21, 17 to 19 even.
Yeah, my jaw's become really sensitive. Like in my late 40s, and just recently, like my son... He's like 5, and he jumped up and hit me square on the jaw, like between the chin and where your mandible, right before it starts to curl up. Didn't even get me that hard, and a slight rattling of the head. And for days, I was really vague. Couldn't remember things. Yeah, and prior to that, I'd been boxing and doing MMA for years, and sparring, and I just felt like even blocking punches, I was walking away feeling rattled. And I've stopped it all because my head feels too sensitive.
Interesting. And did you have head knocks when you were younger?
Yeah, I've been knocked out cold twice.
Yeah.
Once on my skateboard, another time riding a bike without a helmet, and just went over the handlebars, and just next thing I'm sitting in the gutter going, how'd I get here? And then a couple of fights, I got hit, but I think also training a lot, just repeated little knocks.
A lot of sparring.
A lot of sparring, like a lot of touch sparring, thinking, it's just touch sparring. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Fuck, man. The fight game is really the home of the concussion, but so too like rugby league and rugby union, and then, and then you just get unlucky a couple of times surfing and fucking get tagged by some older fucking bloke at the pub, over some bullshit. Like, it all adds up. But, keto and paleo, they're the fucking ones, man. Paleo as well, the Terry Wall protocol. This doctor, she does some great podcasts with Drew Perroit and Mark Hyman. They're two of my, go-tos for biohacking advice. They're both, fucking high-end podcasts, similar to Huberman, but a bit more digestible.
Okay.
Bit less caught up in the numbers. Still caught up in the numbers sufficiently, but not, fucking nerding out on it. Where you
Did you read that book by Mark Sisson called The Primal Palette?
No.
Or The Primal Blueprint?
No.
He was kind of at the start of it, and he inspired Laird Hamilton to really go down that path with, low carb, high fat diets. And I read it, and I actually listened to the audiobook numerous times, and he gives you a 21-day protocol to actually he reckons it takes 21 days for your body to adapt to it. And in the first 21 days, you're going to be headachy. Your guts are going to be really you're going to be shitty. You're going to be shitting your pants all the time.
21 days.
And 21 days. And then all of a sudden it just will make fat your body's go-to primary energy source.
Yep.
So it always goes for the carbs first because they're easy to access. They burn quick. They burn rapidly. But they have byproducts, and then it'll click into the fat. But he's trained it so it'll go looking for the fat first, apparently.
Yeah. And then the brain starts to run on ketones as its fuel, and that's the money for concussion and Alzheimer's and depression and a lot of cognitive issues. It's where the brain tends to run on glycogen and glucose and carbs for the majority of its life and never gets the chance to run on ketones. And I guess when you go back through the evolution of man, a lot of carbs would have been in short supply. They would have only been getting them from potato really and yam, and they wouldn't have always had access to them. So it would have been meat and berries and greens and nuts. That would have been that, and that's the keto diet basically, or the paleo diet, which is they're both similar. The only difference is the keto has the cheese and shit in it. And it doesn't have the sugary fruits. You can have some, but you got to keep it at a certain point. And mate, I relate to that feeling like shit during it. That's why I gave it up because it was impressive how bad I felt.
Do you find that you're getting that what they call keto clarity at times?
It's a good question, man. I think clarity is important. Clarity is what you want, especially after a bunch of head injuries, but clarity at the expense of feeling happy and well, I don't know if that's a good trade-off. So it's you can be clear but highly strung. And then that's where the chuff comes in because it's very hard to be highly strung when you're chuffed. But
do you still chuff?
I just chuffed.
I can't tell.
That's good. It's because of the ketones. The ketones and the fucking terpenes and a microdose this morning. I actually went hard on the supplements, the brain supplements today.
Okay, some nootropics?
Yeah.
Such as?
Neural nectar.
Never heard of it.
It's just a mushroom blend from Superfeast.
Nice.
And I think Forest Foods are an Aussie mushroom company, and they've made some amazing mushroom capsules like lion's mane, reishi, ashwagandha, affordable, Aussie made. You can trust it, like, not to saying you can't necessarily trust the Chinese stuff. I mean, that's where the shit's fucking from, but you know what I mean? Like, they invented like medicinal mushroom use pretty much. So like they do also have the creme de la creme, but hard to know who's who and what's what. So I went go with the Aussie blokes, and so mushies, neural nectar, magic mushroom, 0.2 gram, B3 magnesium, the full Paul Stamets protocol.
I was just about to say that.
The Shilajit.
Never heard it.
Shilajit's this trippy. It's like they call it the sap of the mountains, and it's like it comes from like the Himalayas. I guess primarily in India, I don't know, but maybe in Nepal too. But yeah, it's just this fucking. It looks like Nutella, but like toffee. It's like a toffee version of that, and it's not sweet. It's like fully medicinal, and you just put a pea size of it in your coffee or tea, and apparently it's meant to be amazing for Alzheimer's and these kind of cognitive ailments that set in later in life and also earlier with concussions.
Under that Paul Stamets protocol, how many consecutive days are you doing it? Are you working to a strict set amount of days and have a break? Or are you just doing it as per feeling?
Man, if I was disciplined, I would do it in a cycle. But I'm a little bit ill-disciplined at the moment. But that's part of like my New Year's resolution is to go get really disciplined and go really hard at like all of the things I know can impact my health and cognitive health, brain health, and like love and enjoyment of life. So like the health aspect is fundamental to all of that. I want to kind of like accelerate away from stress and hardship and accelerate into fun, enjoyment, calm, love, and healthy living. The creme de la creme in food, caught by myself, grown by myself.
Do you think this general desire to be like that is the next chapter of your personal journey?
100%. The chapter is a good analogy. I've been thinking about that concept a lot, like how at certain points in our life we just get to, a tool gets given to us. And from that moment, you're able to just start a new chapter, turn over a fresh chapter of life. That tool can also be an event like, losing a partner for better or for worse. Sometimes like I see mates in toxic relationships and like they just fucking axe the toxicity, and then they're just like, they feel like that they can't, or that society will look bad on them, or that they need this person, and they cut them off and they're like, fuck, I'm free. I can do whatever the fuck I want. Like, how good's this? And those new chapters, yeah. So I would say I'm entering a new chapter.
That's awesome. I like that analogy or saying where, you can always press the reset button on your life, like at any time, and we're not defined by the past. So many people are living in the past and defining who they are and their character by their past achievements or past misdemeanors.
For sure.
And whether it's positive or negative, it's just never a good thing to be attached to it.
Man, that's so profound and so true. Like, it's crazy how defined we are by our past. Even me, like, the stories I tell myself constantly, like these stories, like they're the same stories that I keep telling myself.
Are they true though?
Such a good question. They're my recollection of things, which is not necessarily true. And even if it is, it's not helpful. Like, your best bet, and I learned this on the way driving here yet again for the millionth time in my life, is just to meditate when you're driving, when you're, just to focus on what it is you're doing. And if not, then focus on your breath. And if you focus on your breath, you'll figure out how you're feeling, and if you may need food or water or rest. You may need to just focus on your breath more and stop thinking of these stories, and they are because you're not. I just don't think you're meant to. You're not meant to stay stuck telling yourself these stories and thinking all day about these stories. But that's the trap. We're always thinking about these stories in the past and in the future, aren't we? Isn't that what thinking is?
For sure. And for me personally, it always goes to negative things, and then those negative things are throwing me into this perpetual shame cycle. And the shame has just been limiting me.
Shame and regret. Hey?
Shame, remorse, regret. Then that leads to feelings of like sometimes imposter syndrome, inadequacy, and then that affects my relationships, friendships, colleagues at work. And it really does come down to me. I don't know.
Yeah, the only solution to that I know is to step outside of the thinking and the stories, and the only way I know to do that is through meditation, and that's why I do it. I mean, I didn't start doing it for that reason. I started doing it for fucking head knocks because I read some Harvard paper saying like, yeah, meditation will grow your hippocampus and shit, and like it was legit crazy science. I was like, fuck, well, this is so good for my brain. I'm going to do it. And then and then it's transitioned into this fucking full-blown practice of just letting go of thoughts, and because those thoughts are your trauma and shit, and if you just fucking keep ramming the trauma into your own central nervous system over and over again, you fucking destroy yourself and your insides. So meditation's the key. Like, it's the key to it all. It's essential.
Have you heard about the research that says that you can regenerate brain cells?
Yeah.
Paul Stamets talks about it.
Yeah, neurogenesis. I haven't caught pace with that, but I remember when it came out, it got me really excited.
Do you believe it?
I tend to believe what the numbers say, and I haven't looked at like where that science is at. So I don't really know, but it sounded promising. And I think like there's a lot of things that do, and I think psilocybin mushrooms are the one, pretty much, it seems to me. Out of all the science indicates, it's that psilocybin and LSD are just amazing for the brain and for offsetting dementia and Alzheimer's and these kinds of brain cognitive diseases. It's fucking remarkable that A, that is the case, and B, like, it's been withheld from us.
Well, I mean, Australia has legalised psilocybin, but still really inaccessible. I think we talked about that last time we chatted. But for those that haven't done that protocol that you were talking about, like the B3 vitamins with a micro amount of psilocybin and mixed with lion's mane as well, you know, what are you noticing in terms of your behaviour and emotions when you do that?
When I do all those protocols, yeah, it's interesting, man. And then obviously as well, like fundamental, it's what I do every day. Wim Hof, bit of stretching and meditation and a surf as well. So all that shit mixed in.
Yeah.
And I do feel remarkable clarity in the keto kind of diet. I'm only like fucking 16. No, what am I like? I'm not like 10, 12, 14 hours into it. So I don't know if that's affecting me. But ultimately, I feel remarkable clarity right now. And I was in the surf and I was looking at the clouds and they just had a bit of extra radiancy to them where the light was shining in the distance. And I do notice that is a bit of a telltale sign of microdosing or maybe not microdosing, but a heightened sense of connection to the beauty of the world and like just you're a bit more dialed in.
A bit more optimistic?
Yeah, you're enjoying what nature has to offer, and it's charging you up.
Because we need more optimism. Personally, I've been feeling the weight of the world lately. I keep thinking and watching what's happening in the world, and I just can't help getting I'm just getting depressed by the news that I constantly keep hearing. And this is going to sound like, I don't want to sound negative, but I just feel like we're approaching end times. I don't know, man. I just want to share that with you because it's some just dark shit happening right now, and I don't see a way out of it for our as a race, as a species, even. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say that it's frightening, but the solution is really obvious and simple, and it's up to people to implement it. And the solution is like, it is something that exists at the grassroots level, and it is simply wellness, as in it's breathwork and meditation and psychedelics if it needs to be. But I don't think that it needs to be. I think just those two things and exercise. But at a certain point, those things just tip you into a level of consciousness that is not concerned with consumption, greed, gluttony, war, power, domination, ego. At some point you step into a space that's a lot more calm and ingeniously avoidant of catastrophe. Yeah. And it's not that hard to get there. It's just like, it's the only way. It's the only way I can see.
Does it make you feel more empathetic when you do that? Like, do you feel like a sense of building empathy towards others?
For sure. I mean, for sure. No doubt about it. That's like one of the primary teachings of Buddhism is compassion.
Right.
And Buddhism basically is a religion, well, the creme de la creme of it, the Dalai Lama's Tibetan Buddhism is just all about meditation. How's this, man? In the last 12 months, or last year, I met both Wim Hof and the Dalai Lama.
Insane,
in 12 months.
Dude.
I shook Wim Hof's hand in Sydney at this huge fucking breathwork thing where he was teaching 5,000 people to do Wim Hof, and he was like running thousands of people through these ice baths.
Yeah.
And I was one of the thousands of people that went through the ice baths, and you could shake his hand on the way through. And how's this? He had fucking the people getting people into the ice baths, the helpers, were all these like hoodlums with chains on, like all the like islanders and fucking just like white hoodlums from the housos. And that's who he had as his like little helpers getting people into the ice. Like, every detail was fucking so magic.
Yeah, right.
And so he had these hoodlums like doing this major act of compassion, helping people into the ice baths, and he's educating thousands of people. And on the way around, I shook his hand and I was like, "Thank you, brother. I appreciate you." You know what he said to me? He just went, "Yeah, yeah." Just this full fucking Nordish growl. He was frothing. Mate, the cunt in real life was unbelievable. I sat in the front row. I watched him come out when he did his little lecture, and he was hopping around, and like his head was that weathered and blistered from fucking walking up mountains in boardies, and his like legs were so jacked, and he had this full fucking cannonball gut that was just like rock hard, and he was just bouncing around like the fittest, thickest fucking ball of human. Like, looked like he was from a different age.
Wow.
And mate, I was saying to my grandparents over fucking Chrissy that like he is a biblical figure, a proper apocryphal character that's walked out of the pages of some fucking
modern day prophet.
Yeah,
really,
100%. Well, he's more than a prophet because he's not preaching anything. He's not even telling you like what to believe in. He's just like, do this thing. Like, you'll figure it out for yourself.
And then he's letting other people do the science for him.
Yeah, he's like, that's the beauty of it. Yeah. He's as an astute person would do, volunteering himself to the absolute cutting edge of where our species is at.
Yeah.
And he's come up with the most succinct way to good mental health and wisdom, and coupled with meditation, like I was saying, yeah, going to India and meeting the Dalai Lama. His whole fucking speech when we saw him, he said, the gist of it was, I wake up every morning and I do my breath work, which allows me to be a kind and compassionate person and represent the Tibetan plight abroad.
Right.
It's basically what the gist of what he said, yeah. and meditation, obviously. But that was, he just shared his morning routine with fucking thousands of pilgrims. And everyone's like, oh
my God.
It's so true.
What was the vibe in the crowd was just electric?
Yeah, it was, mate, it was really interesting. There was, this old temple, big temple, beautiful temple, like up in the mountains there in Dharamshala, and inside was hundreds of monks, as you'd expect, in robes, bald head, and then also just hundreds of Tibetans who weren't monks, who were just living in exile, your typical, just Tibetans, like, and their dress is classic, like they have their traditional kind of clothing, and it's stuff that's made to last, and they eat traditional foods, and they also have iPhones, and but you had to leave all of them at the front gate. It was psycho. I couldn't believe that. The fucking security was so intense.
Was it?
Oh, mate, these hectic, like, Tibetan fucking, like, Secret Service cats were just, like, they made you use your, like, paw in front of them, and, like, the craziest frisking, like, touching your genitals.
Why
on the way
use
in.
paw in front of them?
Because it might be a fucking
just
explosive or Novichok in the tube,
So they can be staunch, because, like, my image of Tibetans are just they're all, like, monk vibes.
No, because when... Because
you know they're meant to be peaceful, non-violent.
It's not exactly how it is. Like, they've definitely had warrior castes.
Okay.
In that culture. I guess you need it at a certain point. Otherwise, you just get ransacked by the fucking Mongols or China or whoever's doing the ransacking at any which point in history. So they had those guys. But the Dalai Lama's message is simply, to meditate and do breath work and just try to tap into that Buddha nature, that Christ consciousness.
Religion, I mean, do you align with any?
No, because like at the end of the day, like, it's the practice that gets you there, not some cunt's fucking teachings in a book. That's not helpful. Like, you can't tell people how to think, but you can tell them how to act.
Are you referring to the Bible?
I feel like pretty much all of them
are
pretty like that. They're like, oh, like, here's all these teachings in this. Like, I'm saying this without having read one of them. Fucking how ignorant am I?
Well, the reason I've started reading the Bible in the last 6 months, because I'm just like, I started just researching it, and I was like, oh, there's 2.4 billion Christians in the world. Like, and then I read another stat that the Bible is the most sold book of all time. Yeah. I'm like, fuck, like, it's pretty popular.
Of course they'd say that.
And I've never read it. I've never even looked at it. And so I've just started reading it just to be less ignorant. It's fucking pretty interesting.
Yeah, man. It's funny. I grew up in such a Catholic household, and my granddad, to his credit, fucking icon of a man. Boxer from Forbes, rough upbringing, like fucking gnarly, like working class dude, but never drank or smoked, and he's read the Bible, he's read the Quran, and I grew up Catholic, spent a lot of time in Indo where it's both Hindu and Muslim, and now, my mum would probably be like pretty on the Buddhist spectrum, I reckon. Okay. Or at least like, I would say so. Catholic, Buddhist, and then experiencing a lot of these religions. I haven't read the texts though, but at the end of the day, like, anything that preaches dogma or tells you how to live seems a bit redundant to me, when really the principles are simple. It's breath work and meditation and exercise, and then the rest takes care of itself. You don't have to think about it. You're on autopilot. You're on like a bit of a cosmic pathway where your biology is and your chemistry is at a point that doesn't really allow you to be dogmatic or violent or depressed.
That's the big thing. Like, I'm starting to learn on my little journey with it, and it's still a very early journey. That it is. I'm not actually getting the vibe that the Bible is preaching dogma. I feel like it's people creating the dogma, and the organizations creating the dogma. And I've spoke to some God-fearing Christians, strict Bible believing Christians that don't go to church. And I've really
That's
some of the
fascinating.
most interesting people I've met, and that like they've said to me, and I've seen it, that it's the churches creating the dogma, and people, these, sinners or like these, flawed humans, and humans have been flawed forever. Since the beginning of time, they've been doing atrocious things, and it's like, well, what do you expect? We're all flawed, and we are self-serving primarily until we are filled with God and start to serve God. We're always going to be serving our primal, our needs, our primal desires. And some they refer to the 7 deadly sins,
which is pretty much the ones I just listed, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Without having to read the Bible, and that's kind of my point. Is like, you can take acid, you can meditate, you can do breath work, you can do all those things at once, and you will reach a consciousness that is Christ consciousness or Buddha nature, and therefore you don't really have to read the Bible. You are living the same reality as Jesus, more or less. Like, it's not as hard as that's the great sleight of hand of the Bible. It's making Jesus feel like he's this unattainable fucking reality. Man, he was a carpenter from fucking Palestine, who had partners, I believe.
I don't know.
And did some stoic wise shit and was knocked off for it. But I feel like Wim Hof is Jesus. He's the same thing. He's does so much hard work through his biology that he taps into Christ consciousness. He taps into, and he won't be perfect. That's the beauty of fucking being a human, is that he's going to have flaws in shit too. And Jesus would have had his. But Jesus was persecuted for his beliefs, and Wim Hof is being persecuted for his beliefs right now. And it's classic. It makes his tale more and more biblical by the day.
Interesting. Why do we do that? Like, why do we want to persecute free thinkers, progressive thinkers, change makers?
Because he's threatening to tip the card table over and cost cunts a lot of money in the pharmaceutical industry. I haven't read the Bible, but who was it? The Romans, or who did Jesus piss off? The Romans, right? And they knocked him.
Originally, yeah. And then they exiled the Jews from Israel.
And Wim Hof, someone did his. It's a sad story why he's being persecuted, but really sad. This poor girl from a abusive, broken home, did Wim Hof in a pool and drowned. And her mum had given her the technique to do when she was feeling anxious and fucked up, and she did it. But obviously, you could easily do that. I've had a friend do the same thing in fucking Cambodia, and I think he was on DMT as well.
Shit. And blacked out
and died, and they had to resuscitate. He fucking flatlined and shit, and they resuscitated him, and he was sweet.
What, breath holding underwater?
Yeah, breath holding in water, and then you pass out
and blacked out.
Apoxia. Yeah, it's not something to be done anywhere near water, and it says that on the app, and he says that in pretty much all of his videos. But if it gets relayed to someone orally, they don't get the fucking warning, and she died. And the dad is trying to sue Wim Hof, and the mum is like fucking countersuing the dad for trying to sue Wim Hof. She's like, this is bullshit. You're a sad old fucking angry dude, and he's suing the wife and Wim Hof for negligence and shit. But Wim Hof will be sweet. But man, you poke your head up above the parapet and you start calling out fucking the pharmaceutical industry, the prison industrial complex, the military industrial complex, which he does. He has political views. And look at Russell Brand and, Joe Rogan. They fucking come after you, man. The left as much as the right. The left maybe more than the right.
It's interesting, isn't it? Joe Rogan, I recently listened to a podcast with this guy who runs this organisation called Ways to Well. Have you heard about it? And his name's Brian Bergham or something. Anyway. And he was talking, this guy used to work for health insurance companies in America, and he's just seen how broken the healthcare system is, internally, and how much private health insurance companies are completely rorting everybody financially, in the system. And so he created this alternative ways to wellness through alternative means of health and longer consultation times, and it's a bigger initial investment for long-term health and really pushing that preventative model as opposed to the curative model that we all function under. And he was saying how like Joe Rogan got really condemned when he got COVID and for using ivermectin, and the first thing CNN did was like completely obliterate his credibility or try to like, oh, he's using horse tranquilizer, when really it never was. There was some really weak link to being a horse tranquilizer.
Ivermectin was used in Africa to cure millions of people of this parasite that was sending them blind, right? That's it. That was its, and it won the Nobel fucking Peace Prize and shit. Like it's an amazing piece of medical science that improved the lives of millions and millions of people.
Yeah.
As far as I remember, I mean, fact check, do your own research, but I'm pretty sure I read that as what ivermectin was invented for.
But what Joe Rogan highlighted in the whole situation, he said CNN went after him big time, and in the end, it actually discredited them, not him.
Yeah.
And he was saying how like their view count is like, it's like 40, he said they're getting on average 44,000 views a night. And he goes, dude, I'm getting 40 million downloads like a month.
Fucking oath.
And he goes,
How
and he
good's
goes,
that?
and I goes, and during all that, he goes, I got 2 million in a month. I got
Magic.
2 million new subscribers.
Podcast, bro. It's it is the revolution, man. I say it on the potty every fucking week or second week that it is the most significant thing to happen in information technology since the printing press that printed that fucking Bible that is in such high circulation, allegedly. Mm-hmm. Now we have this way to communicate with the world at volume with no gatekeepers. And that's what the printing press enabled. In a much more finite sense.
Yep.
This is much more democratized. It's insane. And Joe Rogan, credit to him, is a psychonaut, is a wellness fucking advocate and ripper-rinnerer, meditator. Mate, the cunt is a fucking legend. He's had, and it's not even about him. It's about the guests he has.
Thank you.
And his commitment to challenging himself and the various narratives that are getting put out by the mainstream media.
And also his willingness to change his position.
That's the key to being a fucking psychonaut and a meditator, man. It's like, and a blue collar guy too. Like, I think growing up working class, like, man, like I look at myself and I'm like, oh, what do I know? I grew up fucking digging holes and punching on and punching cones and playing football and surfing. And like, I look at myself as someone who fucking knows nothing, and I'm continually learning and transmitting that knowledge and ready to self-correct and correct fucking all the time, constantly. Yeah. That's what meditation does for me.
It does, man. And I mean, and that was the point I wanted to make is that, like you just said, like podcasts is independent media and long-form conversation is becoming a keystone to some type of revolution and some type of re-empowerment against a really broken system globally.
Massively.
And I guess the question I want to lead into with that is like, you have a dedicated audience with Ain't That Swell, and I want to know, like, how do you balance like entertainment, because it is pure entertainment a lot of the time, with the responsibility of discussing important issues with a surf community, through a surf community?
I would say I don't.
Is it something you consider?
Yeah, I don't know if it is something I consider necessarily. Like, I feel like at the end of the day, like, there is a time for taking the piss. And like, look, man, at the end of the day, like, as fucked as things ever get, or as fucking corrupt as they can get, especially if they're corrupt, the best thing you can do is take the fucking piss, mate. The best thing you can do is laugh at it all. And there's nothing more degrading than that. When cunts are just pointing at you and laughing because you're a fucking crooked disgrace. So that's like, that'll always be there. And then...
actually, for the first time then, you look. I can tell you were a little bit stoned. Your eyes just went a little bit slitty. It's the first time in the time we've been talking.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Keep going.
No. But also I get bored. Just talking about surfing fucking at a certain point bores me. Like, you know.
Same.
I think there's more important shit in the world than throwing shapes on water.
Yeah, because
But it's mad.
it is mad.
Very mad.
But I'm just wondering because you bring up some heavy issues, bro.
Well, and mate, and like, look, where I grew up, right, Bondi's like fucking. It's a battleground of like class and culture and in the city in general where I'm from. That's where I'm from. Like, fucking Drummoyne to Bondi to Maroubra, that triangle basically. So didn't live in Maroubra, played football there. Mum lives there now, I would even say Lapa, let's say, for argument's sake. We got mates all in that zone, that big southeast quadrant. And mate, it was a fucking, it was revolutionary characters, revolutionary ideas down there. You had the Wharves, you had you had a lot of Maoris that were involved in the Black Power, or like my mentor was anyway, and ran squats and, really countercultural, staunch socialist ideals. You had like a bit of money and that, and old money, I guess, in certain parts. You had a lot of Jewish war refugees and that, like, who'd made good money. You had fucking Iranians, Philos, Thais, like, But beyond all that, like, the place, I guess that's where the pommies landed, and it's fucking been the hotbed of all the national leaders in the last fucking 5 years have all come from this area. Scott Morrison went to Sydney High. Malcolm Turnbull's from Bondi Junction. Anthony Albanese's from fucking Camperdown. Tony Abbott's from just the other side of the river in Warringah, Manly.
Yeah.
Mate, that's all of our last PMs pretty much. Like,
But aside from Albo, the rest, it's because they're all from upper class families.
yeah, like not so much
That's
Turnbull's an interesting one, man. Turnbull's like gets painted like that, but I think single dad, and I don't know exactly how he made his money, but he's from the junction, at least in a point of time when it was like that.
Yeah.
There was socialists down the street. It was in your street. You had garbagemen, socialists, wharfies, rugby league players, surfers, and likely migrants of various stock. And we liked it like that.
Mm.
And there were some people wanted to profiteer off that and rip it apart, and there's some people that didn't agree.
Yeah.
And that's the socialism versus capitalism fucking debate in a nutshell right there, being fought out in my hometown,
So
regularly.
You and your mum mainly?
Yeah.
Just you and your mum? Do you have any brothers and sisters?
I've got a half brother up here, and I've got a guy I would say is my brother who, we adopted from the street. Yeah.
And you were always renting?
Yeah.
And so because you were always renters, you're always forced to move around? Like you were never
exactly.
in the same
So you become acutely aware of the injustice of being born poor, like it's like we live an unstable life, and my mum is still in that life. And, she broke her fucking finger the other day, and she massages for a living, and, she's renting still at like, nearly 60. So it's a hard graft life. We're fortunate some people in the family have made a fucking mozza flipping homes.
I know,
Just
dude.
being a chippy, like, mate, it's iconic. Like, my uncles made a killing, and it was like
cashed up bogans?
Yeah, they are now. Like, and they're all from these bumfuck towns in the bush, and they started doing a bathroom. It was a bathroom first, renovate that, and then fucking get a bit of loot and get a bit of fucking a loan, and you're on your way.
Yeah.
Buying shit boxes and all the way to a park.
My richest friend left school. I went to school with him, left in year 9 because his dad was a chippy. Said, come and be my apprentice. Yeah, and then that led to, end up buying his first home at 21. Flipped it.
Exactly.
And he's flipped about 10
Bada bing,
homes.
bada boom, mate. If you rode the fucking property wave of Sydney in the 90s, mate, it was a major city that popped in the world on the coast. Like, how many of them are first world city are there?
He was fucking dumb at school. Dumb.
Wow.
And just now killing it.
Yeah, and then
probably
often
doesn't even have to work anymore.
Fuck, mate. The question is, can they switch off, and do they have the experiences or the understanding to achieve true joy and connection? And those things can only be experienced through community. And are they destroying the communities? Are they moving on the characters they love in life? And Turnbull and that, like, recognise this. They recognise what inequality and, like, particularly housing inequality and gentrification was doing to the city, and he tried to put a stop to it, man, and that's why he got fucking axed. And Albo has been sick on housing and fucked on the environment, but he's creating kind of like these easy, you need much less of a percentage of the deposit to start getting a mortgage and shit like that. And, I think they're building a lot more like public and affordable housing.
Are they?
I don't know. That's a question, mate. I've got to do my fucking stock take on this cunt, because as much as I love him and he's a house guy from the suburb I lived in, don't know if he's following through.
I want to love him. But I'm a renter now. I was a homeowner for like almost 18 years till I got divorced and pretty much lost it all.
Wow.
But it's so fucking tough being a renter, as you know. Like, I mean, I have a tiny 2-bedroom unit in Newcastle, and it was like I competed against 40 other people for that place.
Not good enough. That's fucked.
And thing is, like, I have a steady income. I'm on a teacher's salary. It's not huge, but it's consistent. And I still had to like grovel for this place, and I really feel like more people are going to start living in vans. And I think we're on our way to being like California, where, like the people that are on Centrelink in our country living in housing commission, in California, those same people are living in tents around Skid Row. It's synonymous with drug use and addiction, that area of California and LA. But there's a lot of people who are not on drugs. They just literally have nowhere else to go. And I just feel like that's where we're not far off that. I don't know. I see it more and more. I'm seeing more and more people living in vans.
Fuck.
I don't know. Especially around the city. I've been in Sydney a lot lately. Have you been in Sydney recently?
Mate, I've never for any major stretch of time, but
I don't know.
I don't know either. It's hard. It's really hard to get a gauge on this kind of shit. Like you can't. That's why you need the data and stats. But then you really have to be careful of who's giving you that data. Like I look at some of these companies that kind of give you the data on housing, and they're also invested, or they're a part of the fucking housing and building industry. And I'm like, well, can you trust it? Like, mate, I just bought, I'm just wondering whether to share this even, but yeah, I just bought a block, let's say.
Congratulations.
And the block was fucking peanuts, and it's in an area where there is a lot of fucking junkies. And it's... Man, it's one of them things, eh? It's like... you don't seem like someone who's driven by money. Mate,
But do you want more money?
I think you need a certain amount to live a fucking halfway decent, calm life in this country.
There's an equation for it.
They say it's 80 grand, don't they? And then from that point on, it's like your happiness doesn't go any higher. That's the graph.
I wish I had a fact checker on demand.
Yeah, my ex-girlfriend worked at a bank, and she was telling me that anyway. She's like, there's a graph that says at 80 grand, your happiness basically flatlines. And it's a steep curve until 80 grand, your happiness really improves because at 80, you're like, all your needs are met.
And there's an equation you can put together and answer a bunch of survey questions for it, for like what your financial happiness level is. And they ask you questions about like, lifestyle and spending habits and what you need. And I actually did it. And I think I worked out for me to be like really happy financially. It's not that high. It's like 10 grand a month pretty much will give me everything I need. It'll allow me to pay off a mortgage based on the median house prices in Australia. It'll allow me to have money to travel when I want to travel. It'll allow me enough money to buy 2 to 3 surfboards a year. It'll allow me to pay for private health insurance and buy the quality of food that I want to buy. Like, so if I want to eat biodiverse, organic fruit and vegetables.
Here's the thing, man, that 120K a year, that's not realistic for any of us. And, but maybe.
What do you mean it's not realistic?
Oh, fuck, mate.
Like not achievable?
Oh, mate, I don't think mate, achieving that ethically. But my point more is, like, it would be hard. My point more is, like, if you can get cheap land, build homes with your mates, grow your own food, catch your own food, and you don't need 120K.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the trick is to get near waves, and I've kind of managed to do that, but I'm surrounded by some rough characters.
Do you think I feel like a lot of people are living beyond their means, probably myself included.
Oh, mate, I refuse to. And
do you?
Yeah, completely. I've never had a credit card. I refuse to go into debt. This is like one of my founding creeds. And
That's right, though.
it's hard. And the only way I've managed to do it is through living in a garage at my fucking grandma's for fucking eons, for like living, caretaking my dad's joint while he was looking after my grandma while she was sick, and like living in Bali, and like, living in a fucking display unit on my uncle's building site, like just
So you've been like squirreling away little bits of money for years and years and years.
Always as a gift to my partner and child at some point, but a gift in the sense of like not having to worry about money, because that's all I ever did growing up.
Yes, brother. I get it. I came from a single parent household as well, man. Never had anything, and then I really was so focused on making money, man. Like just would cling onto it, because I just never had any. And then I actually had a taste of what it's like to have some good money, But then the universe has this really uncanny way of going, it's not good for it. Like I think it was actually going to be bad for me if I kept having too much money. And then it somehow just all went.
That's interesting, man, that you're making good money. I've never made good money, and the idea of making $120K a year blows my mind. But
really,
they're the numbers that people drag in this fucking joint. And
some would say that's low income.
That's insane.
Like that's pretty much a teacher's salary, a full-time teacher's salary.
That shows how out of touch with economics I am in this country. But that said, I'm out of touch with the earnings of my business too. Like I just my whole understanding of finance. I just look at my savings, and I'm like, well, that's what it needs to be to get me this block and this house and this thing, and I don't care about anything else. And
you're not writing like stringent budgets and stuff.
Nah, not at all. I just spend as little money as I can. And without being a fucking tight ass, and have all the things that I need, and nothing more. I can't think of it in terms of budgeting, and it's a full shortfall in me. Like I'm learning that the hard way now, looking into the accounts of the business and how much money we've been making and where it's been going and shit. I'm like, fuck, I should have been paying way more attention to this. Paying $40,000 to the tax man and shit, like me and Vaughan, like
You had to pay that to the tax man.
Yeah, because we're just idiots. We don't know what the fuck
you didn't
we're
do
doing.
your BAS statements, did you?
Oh, fuck, I don't know what one is, mate. I'm not even joking.
Business activity statement, bro.
Yeah.
So I've got so many tradie friends that get fucked up by that because they're subbies and subcontractors. And they don't do their BAS statements they're going to do them every 3 months and shit.
Yeah.
And declare like their spending and stuff. It's just way too much for them.
Fuck, it's too much, yeah.
And then it comes to tax time and they just push it all across the counter to the tax man. And the tax man's like, you got to pay this now.
Yep.
It's heavy.
That's pretty much what we're going through. But, yeah, sorting it out.
We live in a very expensive country.
Mate, we do. And that's why I lived in Bali and that's why I'm intent on growing and catching my own food, because I enjoy that process, and I'd rather that be my job than making money than then go fucking buy food that's worse.
It's a beautiful way to live.
Yeah, if it can be done. I'm sure it can. And I think as communities, if we band together and think in these terms, I think that's a major solution to the way the planet is going.
I was in Mullumbimby today, and I know there's a lot of stereotypes associated with that place, and there's a lot of dudes cruising around in
Mullum, the whinging capital of the world.
Right. And there's a lot of dudes in, my friend called them Mullumbimby starter packs, which like they wear like linen pants and sandals and stuff like that.
Yeah. It made Durham, Charlotte, like you go to all these like kind of Hessian hotspots and fucking there's heaps of cunts that look like that.
Yeah.
And generally, like, I don't want to be too disparaging or generalize too much, but generally, like, the people who have to virtue signal their alternative identity are the least likely to be doing the work. That's been my succinct summary of.
But the point I was going to make, though, is like you drive in there, and yes, there's that big aspect of it, but there's also this beautiful, massive permaculture farm.
Yeah, bro, Roddy, shout out to Roddy, my man, the Brazilian. He fucking
I don't know how it's functioning. I don't know how they're functioning within the community, but either way, it is advocating for growing your own food organically and with biodiversity, which is amazing. And then also I went to this amazing health food shop there, and everyone that worked there was a certified and qualified naturopath, and they had all their certifications up. Whether they're legit or not, I don't know. And they, I wanted to buy some products. I've had this ongoing shoulder issue. I wanted some natural products to help with like tissue repair and whatnot. And I basically got like a free half-hour consultation with a naturopath who just, he asked me all these questions about my health system and and some of my health and lifestyle behaviors. And usually I'd have to pay good money to go and see a naturopath for an hour for a consultation, but I sort of got it for free, and I'm like,
wow,
and
that's
the place
crazy.
was busy, dude. Like,
It's crazy you got a free consultation.
well, just like, yeah, he gave me a solid half hour while I was in the shop of just, going through my body and asking me all these questions.
That's
of
cool,
age and medical history, and it just helped me sort of pinpoint.
Yeah, my mum studied naturopathy. She's a remedial massage therapist and a naturopath, and I grew up on like a lot of that stuff. Like, it was trippy, playing fucking elite football, and like mum's getting the arnica dropper out when I'm all corked out and bruised up and fucked up.
That's right.
And like, but also going to see the creme de la creme osteopath in Sydney, fucking who looked after the Swans, and that Ross Partington was a genius, man. The wizardry that is in that medical space as well, like osteopaths, naturopaths.
I only see osteos now.
Yeah. It's critical to know the differences. I've never seen a physio or a chiro in my life. I've only ever seen like massage therapists and osteos. And
interesting.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah. Anyway, and I guess, and overall, I just sort of was like, because I sort of had this like bit of a chip on my shoulder, like, oh, fucking hippies everywhere, and and I went to this like bougie fucking sauna and ice bath place, which was like epic,
mate. That joint's like like I was saying to you on the phone, like you go to some places and you're like, oh wow, I can't believe life gets this good. And it's it costs a bit, but it's like, I didn't know that was possible. That was a new reality. Blew me out.
Yeah, exactly.
It was mad.
Yeah, it was mad, and it was just like, regardless, they're advocating for some like really good practices here. And I was sort of left there a little bit inspired, and I know there's all sorts of they're always the easiest people to criticize and condemn and accuse of hypocrisy and contradiction and whatever.
Mate, it's the people who wear the Om symbols and are like, just kind of have all like dreadies and like just have all these kind of countercultural motifs, but don't do the work.
Okay.
They're misrepresenting the work.
Ooh.
And that's a fuck up.
It is a fuck up.
Like, they've come to define meditation and breath work and yoga and shit, those people, and they often don't even do it. And the people that need it are the cunts on the fucking job site and in the housos and like in this kind of hoodlum blue collar culture. But they should be in that space and normalized within that context and cultural context. But I feel like those kind of, the hippie set of kind of cat pissed all over him. Just soaked it in patchouli oil, fucking thrown some lentils at it.
And it does fucking...
And just whinged. So much fucking whinging about fucking internet towers and shit. I mean, no, maybe they're on point with that. I don't know. Fuck, who knows? And
it does smell like patchouli in the streets there. I love it. It's funny. You're a good social commentator, I reckon. I've always said that. And I think there's been, your podcast is popular and there's a reason for that. Okay. Do you think that, that upbringing and being surrounded by that diversity in the eastern suburbs, and the moving around all the time, do you think that might have been a gift in disguise for you?
Yeah, I reckon, mate, fuck, in hindsight, yes. Like, it schooled me in the forces of capitalism and economics and greed at a very young age. So I've been learning about broken systems for a long, long time.
Interesting.
And not learning about them, living it. So you know where the fucking holes are when you're living in it, as you're finding out now renting. And as I'm not finding out because I'm not paying rent, and I'm like, I got this trippy setup, comes at a cost.
Are you feeling more peace though? Are you feeling peaceful?
Fuck, man. It's
is there
there's dramas involved in it. It's
there?
You pay a cost. There's always some cost until you have your own joint. But I lost my train of thought. But fuck yeah, it's gone.
Sorry, I took you off track a little bit when I asked you if you felt content.
What were we talking about before that?
Well, I was sort of.
Oh, the traveling around and that, mate. Yeah, so traveling around taught me a lot about the world.
Yeah,
and then getting the job as a journalist and not knowing what really a journalist was and how to be one, and not knowing anyone who was one, I was like, fuck, if I just travel and learn and just live as many different realities as I can and walk in as many people's shoes as I can, then I will learn about the world and I will be a good journalist and a good writer. I need to fast track my learning in this world to survive in this trade because every other cunt was like older, you know. There's no dudes who are like 22, 23, 24 making a quid as a fucking freelance journalist, but I didn't have a choice, or I could have maybe worked in an office in North Sydney or something, but I wasn't that interested in that. So, yeah, and I just travelled and read and experienced, and eventually it's given me a bit of a you just get to compare realities, all these different realities, and that broadens your experience of the world or something.
That's been your education.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you must feel different after doing years of article writing, interviewing. You must be a different human from when you started out, aside from getting older.
I think it's just the getting older mostly. Like, I don't know.
You must be smarter for it.
I'm pretty simple when it all boils down to it. I like surfing and football and chilling with my mates and like getting stoned occasionally and, you know, I'm interested in politics for sure.
What about journalists that you really respect and admire? Who are they?
Mate, it's all about John Pilger, and he fucking just passed the icon, Scum Valley's finest himself, Johnny Pilger, 84, the Richie Benno of investigative journalism. But seriously, mate, fuck. I knew he was old. I've seen him talk a couple times. I've asked him questions in the flesh. He lives in London, and he surfs. He's from Bondi. He surfs. He lives in, I believe, Cornwall, so he can surf.
Right.
But
he
did. And he, you know, but what he's known as is the most fucking fearless investigative journalist of all time that I've ever heard of. And I know, as far as I know everyone of note in the trade, there's not that many of them. Mate, because they all get fucking shot and imprisoned, and this bloke never did. And his whole career, his career coincided with the end of World War II and American imperialism via the CIA and their imperialist wars imperialist wars and coups in many, many countries. And this is a totally untold side of history, and it's ongoing, and it's fucking completely insane that we aren't told about this.
Well, what made him so credible in your eyes? Just fearless?
Going there, you know, going to these places.
Okay.
And just talking to people. It's really all you have to do. You know, you go there with an open mind and you ask people what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, like even even me, I could understand when I went to these countries for the first time, why are they so poor? Like, they're not dumb. So why don't they have anywhere near as much money as we do in the West? Like, why are these cunts so fucking doing it so tough? Doesn't add up.
Yeah.
1 + 1 doesn't add up to 2 because they're smart, industrious people. And as I grew up, I was like, because most of the time they have resources that are being pilfered by colonial superpowers like Europe and America. And, that's what happened all through Central America and Southeast Asia and in ways Australia. And, he dedicated his whole career to documentaries and exposing the criminal manipulation of society by big industrialists and big capitalists in the military industrial complex and the fucking fashion industry and the food industry. And
it's crazy, eh?
Oh man, a very close, confidant of Julian Assange's. The GOAT.
People don't want to hear Julian Assange is the GOAT?
And Pilger, both.
Yeah.
Yeah, both.
Yeah, like people don't want to hear the truth, and it's so easy to cover the truth these days. It really is.
Yeah. Mate, I would suggest watch as many of his films as you can because it's all you need to see. If you really want to know, like, do you want to know? If you want to know how it works, just watch his films.
People don't, in my opinion, especially in Australia, people are happy to be complacent and they don't want to know until it's directly affecting their lifestyle.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess some people are like that, but like the thing is, it will affect you. Like if they're going to do it to some other cunt, they're going to do it to you. Why do you think you're special? Because you got the same colour skin as them? Give me a fucking break, you idiot. They don't give a fuck what skin colour you are, mate. They give a fuck whether you're in their bloodline or you can make them some money. Or you can get fucked by them, like in the physical, sexual sense. They're all about fucking prostitutes and like, mate, I'm just watching all this Epstein shit go down and I'm like, yeah, that's what it's all about. Just ego, power, dick swinging antics.
But I find it so interesting. Like you mentioned Epstein, for example, and there's now like a Netflix series about him. So like the information is so readily available for people, and it's almost like they've designed it and presented it in a way that's able to be a Netflix documentary. So it's like it's visually appealing. It's very well planned and organized. But then people still just they hear about it and then they just forget about it in a few days because it's not really important to them.
Yeah, and
I don't know.
How can you change the reality? And I'm feeling like that. I'm feeling what you're feeling with the depression, with paying attention to what's happening in Palestine at the moment. And mate, like I listen to Democracy Now!, I listen to the Empire Files and these like hard-hitting, hardcore investigative journalist fucking podcasts, and it is so fucking, you're at the point where you're just going, oh man, do I have to go self-immolate? Like, not really.
Self what, sorry?
I'm joking, but like.
Self what?
Like what the monks used to do, lighting themselves on fire in the streets
like
to protest war and shit. Yeah, like that. But like it feels like that. It feels like you're going to explode. Like there's just these fucking raging Nazis slaughtering people in the Middle East, like unapologetically. Just slaughtering, just wasting human life and dancing about it on TikTok. And
when you say, are you referring to Israelis?
Yeah.
I went on a bit of a deep dive, like just trying to understand why they're being so brutal. And I did. I made a really big effort to. And I spoke to some friends who are Israeli as well. And, like one of them put it to me like this, and I'm just going to put it out there. And I'm not just presenting the idea. I definitely am not advocating for the slaughtering of anyone, of any innocent people. I think it's disgusting what's going on as well. I want to make that clear. But he compared it to the plight of the Indigenous in Australia and said, well, the Indigenous in Australia, they believe this land always was and always will be, and I agree with that. And he actually compared it to the Israelis and said, like, that land was theirs. Historically, they were there first.
The Israelis are.
Yeah, and then they were exiled from the land, okay, by the Romans and the Egyptians. And then that was when the Palestinians moved in. But they weren't called Palestinians then. They were just coastal dwellers who were encouraged to move in to literally as a way of eradicating the Jews from the area, from the Holy Land. And then eventually the Jews were able to come back in slowly and live harmoniously together. And they did for a long time. And then until 1948 is when they were like, well, they started to accumulate wealth, power, allies such as America, who needed an outpost in the Middle East because they're the only ally in the Middle East which has direct access to oil. So
they're serving colonial imperial interests in the Middle East. Someone's got to do it.
Exactly. And then he's like, so they're now coming back. And I mean, this is a really heavy analogy. He said, well, imagine if the Australian Indigenous people were able to accumulate wealth and power and become the powerful force in this country. Do you think they would want to how do you think they would they treat the people that stole their children, raped their women, forced their culture away from them, isolated them? How do you think they would treat the white man that came here and did that to them? And that was the comparison that he was made, just to get into that psyche,
it's nice
that mentality.
It's nice to hear a bit of a history like that and another perspective on it.
Yeah, because I can't rationalise how they can be so brutal. Do you ever listen to the Temple podcast?
So you can't rationalise how Israel...
Yeah, I just can't rationalise how they could just be so brutal.
Yeah.
I still can't rationalise it.
I know Temple. Yeah, I mean...
Sorry if I...
It's simple. No, not at all.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking. Just my take on it is that... all lands are fought over, all wars are fought over land and women. I think that's the quote from Shanaram, and that's what this one is being fought over precisely. It's been fought over I guess increasingly the theft of land by Israel in Palestine, and
that's where you will get opposition from Israelis.
Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Like, and that's I don't think anyone's disputing that. Most Israelis won't dispute that. Well, let's say your moderate Israeli would not dispute that. This is why there was fucking hundreds of thousands of people protesting against Benjamin Netanyahu in the outbreak, in the lead up to the outbreak of this war. Part of the reason, because he was implementing judicial reforms that took away power of the courts and judges, which would allow him to enable power. He's a political survivor. He's done like 16 years as Prime Minister in various terms. So he's doing that, and he's aggressively seizing land on the West Bank. Like, these two facts aren't in dispute. So he's being protested against, he's doing these judicial reforms, and he's seizing land on the West Bank. He's a classical right-wing, conservative, war-hungry leader.
Zionist.
A Zionist.
As well.
Of course. He's all about the state of Israel ruling both lands. Hamas is about the same thing. They want a one-state solution. So you've got a two-state and a one-state. Both Netanyahu and Hamas want the same thing. They want a one-state solution. They're just two pit bulls going at it. The bummer is there's all these fucking innocent people in the middle and they're getting slaughtered.
Well, that's what's interesting. And then
you're not allowed to do that.
And there's so much I don't know if it's false information, stories of some of those Hamas leaders hiding out in orphanages. So then the Israelis are bombing the orphanage. But then the other point,
it doesn't even matter, does it? Like, if they're hiding out in an orphanage, you don't get to kill fucking 50 kids to kill one Hamas guy.
I agree. But the other point that was made to me was Hamas are running Palestine under Sharia law, and they have been for years. So they follow the Quran literally, and there's philosophies in the Quran such as an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Did you know that's from the Quran?
Yeah. So the argument being that by butchering 27,000 people, they're helping to eradicate this hardline interpretation of Islam.
Well, that's it. And that's where the Israelis are just really also running on fear, because it's I think their mindset is these are savages who, if we don't exterminate them, they're running under those philosophies of that it might be not a matter of if or when they're going to commit what they did on October 7th. Yeah. Remember when that terrorist attack where they went to the festival and it was done in a very, very brutal way, very hands-on, brutal way, the way they did it. So it's they're just completely running on fear now. That was another viewpoint on it.
So they're trying to unapologetically, ethnically cleanse a land. So they started by kind of doing that in a more subtle way, seizing land on the West Bank, this aggressive kind of apartheid policy, different, one street's a Jewish street, or Israeli street, one street's a Palestinian street. Palestinians constantly going through checkpoints. Got this fucking two sets of rules for two different people, and then obviously it blows up. Look, man, we did a whole episode on this.
Did you?
Yeah, with Lucy Smalls, System Failure. The first one we did, the Goat Spiracy one. Go listen to it because I got to bail and I fucking...
you got to go. Okay,
yeah, and we we fucking smashed this out with all of its factual, as deep of a dive as we could pull off being, a career journalist of 20 years. So, but
okay, check it out.
I'm trying to give a summation of it. The land theft has turned to ethnic cleansing, and Israel is running on fear, so they're just butchering people. That sounds a lot like what the Nazis did to the Jews, or this is just a classic butchering. It's a classic genocide, and there's no justification for it. And
religion can be part of it to take responsibility for it. It's the two conflicting ideologies as well at the bottom of it as well.
Yeah.
Or
I guess
maybe
so.
at the top of it.
I mean, the leaders will have you think that. The leaders of Hamas, the leaders of fucking Israel will tell you that,
Yeah.
but I feel like there's a lot more common ground in between, and in the ordinary everyday working people who just want to go home to their families and break bread. And I think when you listen to that podcast, that System Failure one with Lucy Smalls, you'll find out that a lot of the people who were butchered in that October 7 attack were peace activists from Kibbutz Be'eri who raised over 400,000 euros, I think, for this. I forget the exact name of the charity, but it was a charity designed to take Palestinians to Israeli hospitals through the checkpoints.
Yeah.
And these were the peace activists in Israel, and they were butchered in that attack, along with the people at the rave who were, generally countercultural, drug taking, the least likely people to be fighting a war. Okay. So it's almost as though Netanyahu sacrificed the enemies within his own community to create a reason to then fucking wipe out a people with American bombs and guns.
Hey, aside from you said being more disciplined this year, maybe with the podcast and stuff, like, what's happening with Ain't That Swell this year? Like, any exciting plans or aspirations, or you got any new articles, or what's going on? Just the same formula?
Just pumping them out when I can.
You pump out a lot, right?
Oh, mate, I don't pump out as much as a bricklayer lays bricks, so, just keeping them entertained out there.
And I've got one, like, you got to run now? Like, how long you got? Like 2 minutes, 5 minutes?
Yeah, I got to go now.
Okay. Well, man, it's been a pleasure, as always. And, yeah, man, have a rad afternoon. I'll check you.
Thank you, Shan Lord.
You.